Good morning, everybody. It's Chelsea Taylor. Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of South Florida Sunday. Delighted this morning to have some folks in the studio with me. Kurt Trechuk, who is the trainer, the trainer of Lester Raines Kennels here in Palm Beach, Florida, and Barbara Massey. Always like to have you in here. She is the president and founder of Awesome Greyhound Adoptions and the Hounds and Heroes program. You've actually been a volunteer since 2000 with this particular breed.
That's correct.
So good morning. Thank you both for being here this morning. Let's get right to it. Why are we here today talking about greyhound racing?
First thing is we're here for the dogs. We are very, very much into this particular breed of dog for the purpose of racing, because that's what they do. That's what they're born and bred to do.
Right.
Our reason for being here is really twofold. One, to express displeasure on the decision on all the amendments of the Constitution Revision Committee. They chose to approve so many of them that they did not consider finding out more about. The second is to explain why Amendment 13, which is to ban greyhound racing, does not belong in the Florida Constitution. Of the 37 members of the CRC, only one accepted the invitation from the racing kennels to visit to see for themselves whether or not this is good for the dogs. And when he went, which is Commissioner John Sternberger, he visited a kennel and he was delighted and impressed by what he saw. And he spoke against the proposal to ban greyhound racing. We're in it for the dogs, not for anything else. So, right, Kurt?
Most definitely. And I have to say, I personally was very, very disappointed at what I saw at these CRC hearings. It seemed like the majority of the commissioners, especially the ones who are elected officials, all just had an agenda already, and nobody wanted to listen to anything that we had to say.
Okay.
And I was greatly saddened because we would have welcomed anybody to come by the kennels and see the care that these greyhounds receive. Every time we went to these hearings, I went around the state of Florida, and we implored them to stop by a kennel, just go unannounced.
Educate yourself,
And none of them wanted to learn anything. They had no desire. They had an agenda already set.
Interesting. So tell us then, from your perspective, why greyhound racing is so important to the breed.
The amazing thing about it, they're referred to as working animals. We love them to death in the kennels, but the thing that these greyhounds love more than anything else is to be able to run and to chase. I've seen 14-year-old retired greyhounds that haven't seen a racetrack in 10 years. When they go back to the racetrack to visit and they hear the lure going around, they're dragging and pulling and want to get back out there and just do that. And the beauty of a greyhound doing what Mother Nature intended it to do is one of the most amazing things you could ever see. And I ask anybody to come out to the racetrack and just watch them run and see how amazing they really are.
So tell us then, kind of give us the daily normal routine with the greyhounds, what their average day's like.
Okay, well, it's very involved, actually. Most people think we just bring the dogs out there and let them run. We start our day at 5 o'clock in the morning. 5 o'clock in the morning, we separate our boys and girls. They go outside in separate pens to go relieve themselves while we go inside and we clean up their bedding and freshen it all up and the whole bit. That normally takes anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half in the morning. Then after that, we're not done. We have to go out there. There's dogs to be walked for exercise. There's a big sprint path provided by Palm Beach Kennel Club, which is deep sand. It's probably 600-800 feet long. And you can exercise your dogs out there. It's great to just watch them as they run up and down through a sprint path as they're having a blast running with each other. They're not chasing anything.
Just free play.
On top of that, we have something that most people don't get to hear about. We have we call it a grooming bench. And every racer, the day before it runs and the day after it runs on the racetrack, we put it on this grooming bench. And we go over them from head to toe to check them for parasites, injuries, problems, anything like that. Then they receive massages with liniments and what have you. And after we're done with that, the day after they run, a lot of kennels also have whirlpools. And after they've received their massages, they go into a nice whirlpool bath.
Sounds like a pretty nice day to me.
For about 5 minutes.
Massage in a whirlpool. It sounds wonderful.
Has a spa day there.
Exactly. And then after all that's over with, once again, we go back to the feeding of them. And we use a large amount of lean ground beef with vitamin supplements. I cook a big stew with chicken and vegetables and what have you in there. And we mix this all together for them. We go around and feed all the dogs at the kennels. And now the ones that are racing that day, they just receive a small snack. You don't want a dog to race with a big full belly full of food.
No, absolutely not,
They get to eat after they race. But anyway, after we've done all of that, then they all go back outside again weekend to go relieve themselves. And then normally we're looking at about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning when it's time to take the ones who are scheduled to race that day over to the racetrack.
Yeah.
Then when you're at the racetrack, you have to weigh them in. They have to be within certain weight range for them to actually be allowed to race. After they race, we pick up the dogs, we cool them out. There's a big water tank that you can walk them through to cool them off. And then we walk them around like any athlete. After they exercise, they don't just go sit right back down. We're taking them for long walks behind the tote board just to keep their muscles loose and what have you. And then after you're done with the races, you also have somebody who's back at your kennel who's letting the dogs out again a couple of times in the afternoon. Because a lot of times you will hear the anti-racing people say that these dogs are put in crates for 20 plus hours a day with no human interaction. I spend anywhere from 13 to 16 hours a day with my dogs in the kennel.
Yeah.
Whether they're inside their crate, outside their crate,
What size
or
are
what
their
have you.
crates?
The crate size of a racing greyhound has ample room for the dog to stand and turn and lie down in comfort.
Okay.
Dogs consider their crate their safe place, and they're glad to return to them once they've been turned out in the pens or taken for schooling or racing. The minimum size, is 42 by 34 by 32, and most are much larger. Your pet crate at home is smaller than this, and yet often pets are kept in the crates at least 10 hours a
all
day,
day,
while people are going to work and then to work and from work also. And then, of course, some people keep them in their crates overnight, too. So
Right.
there's a much smaller crate.
And I'll be honest with you, well, we're on the radio, nobody can see me, but I'm not a small guy.
Yeah.
And I can fit easily into one of those crates myself.
Wow.
So,
Okay. So there's plenty of space. I will tell the people then there is absolutely a ton of space.
And
then.
many of the kennel owners bring their children, and their children are there, and they're taking the dogs out, putting the muzzles on, sitting in the crates with them. Some of them fall asleep in the crate with the dog.
Oh, that is so cute. I mean, so since we're here and we're educating and we're trying to learn, about the facts and keeping greyhound racing alive, what do you do when they throw out that figure to you? When you're dealing with, the politicians who are saying that there's been 400 greyhounds that have passed away since 2013 in the state of Florida? What do you say to them?
what we try to educate them on is these radical animal rights groups that are out there can throw out figures that they want to, unsubstantiated figures that they can throw out.
Right.
And that's one thing that gets to me. Do greyhounds pass away? Have they? Of course. Anybody, you would be lying if you said no. But when you have 10,000 dogs in the roughly 10,000 dogs in the state of Florida that are racing greyhounds, whether they're puppies or what have you. In a population of 10,000 of any breed of dog, you're going to have one here or one there that may pass away due to cancer or what have you.
Yeah, right.
Those things happen. But what's amazing about greyhounds and what most people don't realize is, let's say you take a dog to a dog park. There's all kinds of dogs out there. They run into each other, get injured. What do? You have to go to a vet. Well, if there's no vet that's open, let's say you took the dog to the dog park in the evening.
Right.
When our dogs are racing on the racetrack, there is a veterinarian there from the time they're weighed in until the last race runs so that they can receive emergency medical care right there at the racetrack should they need it. And some of the other things that I just wanted to point out, greyhounds are probably the safest breed of dog in the United States, American racing greyhounds. In the kennels, they're climate-controlled kennels. They're under 24-hour security. They have heat monitors in the kennel to let you know if it gets over 80 degrees because there's a problem. There's smoke detectors in the kennels. I mean, we're with them all the time. So these dogs are very well taken care of. And that's what we try to stress to people.
Right. Just educate them. What about the greyhounds that are injured or leave the track due to their inability to race as fast as expected? What happens to them?
Well, that's this young lady right here, Barbara Massey. I deal with her almost exclusively on greyhounds. And if you have one that does get injured, we take it to a veterinarian for whatever treatment that it needs, and we keep it there at the kennel until it's healed up with regular veterinary visits.
Right.
And then we work with actual adoption groups here. Barbara Massey's own Awesome Greyhound Adoptions, she has 2 of my dogs right now available for adoption over there, as well as her Hounds and Heroes program. I have a dog in that who I get to see I haven't seen in a while. He's with a veteran. But there are also a few other recognized adoption groups here as well, and we try to work with everybody. but they make excellent pets. So that's where they
absolutely.
normally go.
Even the injured dogs are wonderful as far as pets are concerned. We have no problem placing them in homes. We do not use them for the Hounds and Heroes program because that particular service dog has to keep up with the veteran 24/7,
Right, yes.
and may have a chance to visit. Well, for example, NASCAR. We've had one go to NASCAR. We've had one go to Hawaii. We've had one go on a Caribbean cruise. We've had many of our dogs do things that most dogs don't do, but they have to be able to keep up. So the injured ones we do pet out rather than put in the Hounds and Heroes program. Can I just go back 1 minute on the deaths in the Greyhounds? If you figure 400 dogs out of thousands, 8 to 10,000 dogs in 5 years, and you take a look at that number, and then you take a look at the number of dogs that are healthy dogs that are killed in the local shelters. That number is thousands per year across the state of Florida. We are very lucky in that we have the adoption groups
Right.
specific for our breed. We take care of our own dogs.
So what is the rate then of adoption of retired racing greyhounds, you'd say?
We have a 95% rate
So, yeah, that's
of
incredible.
adoption of the dogs, and then the others that are not adopted either go back to their original owners or they're sent back to the farm to be mommies or daddies.
Yeah.
So Kurt, what
exactly.
about, so you're not going to lie, there's such a stigma against greyhound racing, and that's this like battle that you're trying to educate people on and make them understand. So when they say that there's been positive tests for finding cocaine in their system, tell us how you speak to that issue.
Well, and that's been one that has been thrown in our faces here a lot lately.
Yeah.
And what most people don't see is
Or hear,
or hear are the minuscule amounts that these dogs tested for. I'm trying to remember some of the numbers that they said. Is it parts per billion or parts per million?
I think it's per billion.
Right.
Yeah.
Per billion. But anyway, the ones that tested positive was, I think, on the low end 7 parts per billion and the high end 27 parts per billion. Most people don't realize in a human being you can have up to 150 parts per billion in your own urine sample, and yours is considered a clean urine sample because of environmental contamination around here.
Okay.
Now, when we pass off the dogs, we don't have contact with our dogs for up to hours after we pass them off to the racetrack. By law, we pass off a dog. When we weigh it across the scale, it goes into the paddock and it's locked up there, and the track employees take care of it. I'm not trying to incriminate anyone, but they're out of our care. So any kind of environmental contamination, whether it's on a person's hands, face, what have you, if a dog licks it, bam, there you go.
Yeah.
Nobody would be stupid enough, I'm sorry, but nobody would be stupid enough if you're a racing greyhound trainer to jeopardize
the health of your dog.
The health of your dog and your career by giving them cocaine. I mean, you can't even give a greyhound aspirin, okay? You would get a positive test for salicylic acid. They use a gas chromatograph mass spectrometer to break down the urine.
It just makes no sense. It just really makes no sense.
Nobody would knowingly give it to them.
Yeah. But one other thing, Chelsea, I just wanted to mention is the anti-racing people have gotten in onto this to do the testing and to be out there with that type of a thing. And we've recently had some urine samples that were tested and had a slight positive. And then without ruining the chain of authority of the actual specimen, it was taken to a DNA lab. It wasn't canine urine.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's a little different.
Yeah, from what I have read and talked to the people involved, what they were trying to do, to be honest with you, is they had asked for a split sample of what tested positive so that they could send it to an independent lab. And the people who were in charge of that Greyhound, they said they were just having DNA testing done because they thought it might be an adulterated sample where you had urine from more than one dog in there. Well, then they sent it to, it was University of California, I can't remember, UC Davis, their forensics lab at UC Davis. And when they were contacted by the forensics lab at UC Davis to find out how many dogs had DNA in that urine sample, they said, we got news for you. This isn't canine.
Canine.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, it wasn't any animal. There were a number of animals animals that they said it certainly was not. So again, where did it come from?
Right.
Certainly not
Exactly.
from Greyhound people.
Wow. So then just kind of give us, an oversight and overview into what's going to be the impact on our economy here in Florida if Greyhound racing is banned, and what can we do?
Oh, there's many implications of the ban on racing. There's the impact of over 3,000 people that will lose their jobs. There's the farms that are going to be abandoned because they're not going to have the ability to afford to raise the greyhounds. The vetting of 8,000 dogs in Florida. The veterinarians are going to lose their income from that. The food and supplements that these number of dogs take. Utilities, a place for them to live. We could go on, but the estimated figure is about $12.5 million in
Wow.
losses per year.
Wow.
Plus the income that comes in from the state as a tourist mecca for the industries. Just an FYI, I have the figures from 2015 and 16 for sports revenue in the state of Florida, whether it be football or basketball or whatever it might be. Greyhound racing is right up there, just below professional football. It's before the
Wow.
Miami Heat as far as the money that it brings in. And we have it for 2015 to 16, it's $240 million brought in just by the Greyhound industry.
Wow, that's incredible. So what are you guys doing to save it, so to speak?
Well, basically what we're doing is asking anyone and everyone who is a registered voter to vote no on this Amendment 13 when it comes up in November. And then when they ask us why, we can sit and educate them and tell them the truth about the industry. And like I've always said, I invite anybody, come out to the racetracks
just
and
you wanna get the message
just
out.
see
Yeah.
the truth. Don't believe everything you read on the internet.
Or hear, yeah.
It's the saddest thing when people rely on just the internet for their information.
Absolutely.
Because I could say anything I want on the internet. There's no repercussions.
So where are you exactly located then, Kurt?
The racetrack itself is located at the intersection of Congress and Belvedere. And
Palm Beach Kennel Club.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you are the trainer for a specific kennel.
Correct. Yeah, they have 12 contract kennels there that were contracted to the racetrack to run for a calendar year with them.
Right. So,
And
like,
Chelsea, during our conversation, ought to make note of it because, of course, there's no visual here. We have in the room here with us one of the service dogs that we have raised.
Yeah.
And you
Bolt,
are
yeah.
familiar with Bolt.
Very.
He's been here. As a matter of fact, I've been told I can't come to the radio station unless I bring him with me.
Absolutely not. We tend to like animals here more than humans,
And if you
I
take-
can respect that.
yeah, right?
If you take a look at him, you will know that there was never any abuse in his life. He has been loved all his life, from the farm to the schooling to the track and then to adoption.
Absolutely. It's amazing for you to tell that story.
What is the website? It's greyhoundchronicles.com, isn't
Yeah,
it?
Greyhound Chronicles, a gentleman by the name of Jeff has taken on. As a matter of fact, he was anti-racing in the beginning, and he said, I'm going to go find out.
Just
And he-
educate, yeah.
And he went and he brought a GoPro camera, and he has been all over the state taking pictures, and you can visit Greyhound Chronicles and see his pictures, and he is now pro racing.
Wow.
He has seen.
It's really amazing what he has done, and he doesn't announce himself when he goes to these racetracks.
Right,
so
right.
that's the great thing, and he will go in there with his GoPro and show you every aspect
Right.
of what we do. He's gone to kennels at 5 o'clock in the morning to meet up with them over there and say, hey, let's do some videos, and shows you every little aspect of it. It's the most amazing thing to see, and it's happened more times than not where people who
Absolutely.
are anti-racing, who cared enough to have an open mind to come out and
To understand.
exactly,
Right.
to educate and understand for themselves what actually goes on. They're fascinated when they get out there and they say, well, what we've heard wasn't true.
No, and these animals are happy, and
Yes.
this is their livelihood.
All of us are looking to keep animals from extinction, and there's an extinction in a lot of animals. There will be extinction of the retired racing greyhounds if this goes into effect. There is a breed called a greyhound, which is a show greyhound. It is different entirely from the retired racing greyhound, but we will have the retired racing greyhound go to extinction if this happens.
Wow. Well, thank you guys so much for being here today. Like I said, I know it's all about education for everybody, having that knowledge, that's power to understand, how important it is to kind of keep Greyhound racing alive, especially here in Florida. So I urge them to reach out to you guys, to visit your websites and to
definitely.
educate themselves.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to bring anybody out there and show them around. I mean, they'd have to go to the racetrack first
Yeah.
now, but it's no problem
easy
for
to do.
tours of it. Yeah, I mean, we're not trying to hide anything.
No.
The whole thing is we love these animals. I actually had trained greyhounds for 24 years and then had gotten out of it because I thought I saw the industry shutting down in West Virginia where I was at. And I moved. I was doing a completely different job, making great money. And 2 years ago, I got the offer to go to work for Lester Raines, a guy who I very much respect.
Yeah.
And I left West Virginia and came down here to get back into greyhound racing 2 years ago. Trust me, I work 3 times as many hours as I used to, but
Yeah,
I love
but
it.
it's the joy.
There's
Yeah.
nothing better than walking into a kennel first thing in the morning and you've got 50 or 60 dogs that are sitting there barking, just excited to see you.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and that's an amazing thing.
That's so great.
And the other part of it is, as I said, we have the 95% adoption rate. We don't depend on shelters and other facilities to take care of our dogs. They are taken care of by volunteers. Again, I have no skin in the game. I'm
Yeah.
not paid by the Greyhounds. I don't earn my money from Greyhounds. It has nothing to do with it. I'm pure volunteer.
Absolutely.
And I've done that since the year 2000. And it's for the love of the breed.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Barbara, so much for being here
thank
this
you.
morning. Absolutely.